Your spouse, your kids, and your priest can forgive you, not your government. That forgiveness should come with warning signs all over it. The question really is, do you see them? More on that in a second here.
You gotta learn to trust your government.
That's what I do.
Okay, starting with our show here, here's one of the questions that we have for you. What's your biggest expenditure outside of your house? I mean, probably your car. Now, if that's true, can we say the car falls before the house falls when we have financial hardship? I mean, where I live is more important than where I drive. Arguable, but you get the idea. So cars then could be indicators of the housing market, of things to come, you might say. Maybe. With that said, let's check out how the housing market has tracked over the past few years. It is so incredibly similar to housing. It's really interesting. So first, and we're going somewhere with this, over the past 3 years since July 2020, new car prices are up 20%, used cars up 40%. It's huge, right? Just like housing. Since 2017, the last 6 years, the amount financed of prime, near prime, subprime, and deep prime car loans are all up significantly. Not so surprising, the average loan amount on all types of loans for cars are up. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The average payment on all types of car loans since 2017, the last 6 years, particularly over the past year, is way up. Now that's due to the Fed's rate and inflation policies. You heard me right. The Fed's policy is to make everything more expensive to fight inflation. It's brilliant, but it's exactly what we're seeing in housing too. So let's keep on track here because housing professionals need to know this. Delinquencies on cars on all types of loans are through the freaking roof. As it pertains to cars, we are financing more at higher rates over longer periods of time with riskier loan profiles, and now we're seeing the byproduct of this reality. That is, repossessions are through the roof, but more importantly, and not to be lost, is that all of these policies of this reality has not diminished our desire to buy cars or diminished the appetite for those who want to finance cars. That, my friends, is alive and well. Simply put, higher rates, terms, prices, and profiles have now led to significantly higher repossessions. This should sound familiar to you, right?
Sound familiar?
The only difference you see with the housing market is that we are yet to see those repossessions, those foreclosures in our case. If we do, it would be an absolute godsend. Inventory and loans would spike and values would come down just a bit, and that would all be great news. The only thing that could stop any of this from happening right now, if we're to look at the car industry as a precursor for the housing industry, is going to be government policies. You see, government intervention and interference. Will that happen in the housing industry? Let's go back to the canary in the housing coal mine, that being the auto industry. So what's taking place with all this news I just shared with you? Well, the CFPB, they've inked a little memo titled Market Monitoring Insights, examining the potential credit impact of high vehicle costs for consumers. And in that, the CFPB says, and I quote, "Recent data shows that the rate of transitions into delinquency, especially for low-income borrowers," that's a buzzword right there, "has risen over the past year. Inflationary pressure could mean the cost of car ownerships are outpacing income growth for some consumers with auto loans." And again here, side note, which makes the Fed's rate policy maddening, that they're exacerbating this point with their policies. Continuing with the CFPB statement, while we cannot fully infer the contribution of either of these possible explanations to the rise in delinquency rates, we cannot ignore the relationship between larger loan amounts and increased interest rates to consumers' monthly budgets, and some consumers struggle to stay current on their loans. That's what the CFPB has to say, and therein lies the problem and the beginning of what they perceive to be a solution. The CFPB believes that prevailing interest rates and loan amounts are a problem, especially for their trigger word, low-income borrowers, so they're going to have to do something about it.
What is that?
What's that, you say? Well, let's just say let's continue following this path, shall we? If housing is your most expensive expenditures, cars might be the second. But you'd also have to say that for some, student loans are in that family. And what have we done with student loans? We've done student loan Forgiveness. Back to the original point of our show here. Such a polite way of saying defaulting on your legally binding and agreed upon loan obligation. As I said at the beginning of the show, forgiveness comes from your friends, your spouse, or your priest, not the government. So here's our prognostication over here. If we see delinquencies spike, as is the case in the auto industry, we surely will in the housing industry in the coming months. Will the government intervene and ramp up modification programs to keep folks in homes? All indications are they're going to. Just look at student loans and look at the auto industry. Housing loans will be the next card to fall here. When you add an election year into the equations, politicians see this as good optics for their re-election. For the health of the economy and our industry, we need a little fire for the health of our forest. Because when people move and migrate, housing wins, our tax base wins, our economy wins, and we all flourish. What now looks like inevitable alternative is not a solution, just an extension of the same pain we're currently feeling. It's kind of crazy when you sit back and think about it for a second here, that our new reality is to stay in a house, drive a car, on an education that have all been modified, adjusted, or forgiven for our convenience. Oh, and don't miss this point, later consideration from our elected officials. Sure looks that way, doesn't it? Ain't it interesting how hard times just have people looking for solutions everywhere? Listen, I reconsidered my business from the ground up, and it's been fantastic. I'm doing point-by-point presentations on how to adjust for the markets we're in and the markets that are coming. If you want to be a part of this, you should. I'm not charging you anything. It's this upcoming Thursday at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Fill out the information down below. Jump on. By the way, we're on presentation number 5. We got some great stuff cooking.